It was supposed to be just another regular shift. The buzzing of self-checkouts, chatter from customers, and the familiar ding of the sliding doors were part of Emily's daily life. She was 20 years old, barely scraping by on minimum wage, working long hours at Rivermart, one of the largest retail chains in the country. Quiet and efficient, she was known for her politeness and consistency, but very few people ever looked her in the eyes or asked how she was doing. She had become a ghost in her own workplace. What no one at the store knew was that the new seasonal hire, named Dave, was actually Daniel Rivers, the CEO of the company. Disguised in a plain hoodie, jeans, and a scruffy beard, he had walked into the store a week ago with a mission. He had grown weary of corporate reports that polished over employee experiences. Whispers of poor treatment in stores kept reaching his ears, and this time he wanted to see for himself. No corporate badges, no cameras, just a man blending in. Daniel had spent the last several days observing everything. The tight smiles, the way floor supervisors barked orders, and how most employees barely made it to their 15-minute breaks without stress lines on their foreheads. He quickly noticed Emily, not because she asked for attention, but because of the small things. How she helped elderly customers bag their groceries, even when she wasn't assigned to. How she kept her register spotless, and how she held back emotion behind a tight smile. There was pain beneath the surface, but she never let it show until that afternoon. It was just after 4 p.m. when Daniel walked past her register and saw Emily frozen, clutching her phone in one hand and blinking back tears. She'd just taken a short call. Craig, the assistant manager, stood nearby with a clipboard in his hand and annoyance on his face. "You think you can take a personal call on the clock?" he snapped. "We've got a line here, Princess." Emily looked down and whispered, "It was the hospital. My dad just had a heart attack. My mom's scared and she doesn't drive." Craig rolled his eyes. "That sounds like a personal problem. You walk off this register and you're fired. Simple." A customer gasped quietly. Daniel's hands clenched into fists. He took a step forward but paused. He had come to observe, to understand what his employees went through, but this wasn't something he could quietly watch anymore. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, still in disguise. Craig gave him a dismissive glance. "No, just teaching her responsibility. You new hires should take notes." Daniel locked eyes with Emily. "Go make the call," he said gently. "I'll be fired," she whispered, choking back tears. "No, you won't," he said firmly. With shaking hands, Emily stepped away from the register and disappeared into the back room. Craig turned on Daniel with narrowed eyes. "That's insubordination. I don't know who you think you are." Daniel stood up straighter and met him eye to eye. "I'm someone who believes a woman shouldn't have to choose between her job and her father's life." Craig snorted. "Spare me the speech, man. You won't last a week here if you keep interfering." Daniel said nothing more, but inside, the decision was already made. He walked toward the break room, pulled out his phone, and dialed the company's executive team. "Code Black," he said. "Immediate intervention. Store 117. Send HR and regional leadership in 90 minutes. I'll be here when you arrive." For the next hour, Daniel helped bag groceries at Emily's register while she stayed on the phone with her mother, tears running down her face. None of the other managers seemed to realize what was coming. They treated Daniel like any other grunt worker, even ordering him to mop the entrance after a spill. At exactly 5:35 p.m., 2 black SUVs pulled up in front of the store. Out came 3 corporate officials in suits, clipboards in hand. Craig watched from the electronics aisle, confusion on his face. When Daniel finally removed his hoodie and approached the group, the employees gasped. "Wait, is that—" Daniel smiled faintly. "Good evening, everyone. I'm Daniel Rivers. I've been working alongside you for the past week." Craig's mouth dropped open. Daniel looked around the store and added, "And I've seen everything I needed to see." And in that moment, Emily, who had just returned to the floor, realized the stranger who stood up for her wasn't a seasonal worker. He was the man who ran it all. The store was silent as Daniel's words echoed across the front lobby. Employees stood still, staring at the man they now recognized from company memos, training videos, and magazine covers. Craig's face went pale, all the arrogance drained in an instant. Emily stood frozen near the register, unsure of what to say or do. She had just gotten off the phone with her mother. Her father was in stable condition, and the ambulance had arrived in time. Relief had only just started to settle into her chest when everything around her changed again. Daniel turned to the employees. "I came here not as a CEO, but as someone who wanted to see the truth, and I've seen enough." He motioned to the HR officials behind him. "There will be changes, immediate ones." Craig stepped forward nervously. "Sir, if I may explain, there's been a misunderstanding. I've always followed company policy." Daniel stared at him without blinking. "You threatened to fire a young woman for answering a call that could have been life or death. You embarrassed her in front of customers and staff. That's not policy. That's a failure of leadership. You're relieved of duty, effective immediately." Craig opened his mouth but couldn't find any words. Security, now informed, escorted him from the store. The rest of the staff quietly moved away, avoiding eye contact, suddenly alert and professional. Daniel walked back to the front where Emily still stood. She looked completely overwhelmed, tears in her eyes, hands shaking slightly. She whispered, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cause trouble. I didn't know who you were." He gave her a small smile. "You didn't cause trouble. You showed me the heart of this store. I saw how hard you work. I saw how kind you are. You were exactly the person I hoped to find." He pulled out a small card from his jacket pocket. "This is my assistant's direct number. I want you to finish your shift today and take a week off, paid. After that, I'd like to offer you a position at corporate. We need voices like yours in customer experience." Emily stared at the card as if it were made of gold. Are you serious?" "Dead serious," he said. "People like you remind me why this company was built in the first place. Not for numbers or stockholders, but for people." Word spread through the store like wildfire. Employees whispered in the aisles. Some smiled. Some wiped away tears. Emily's co-workers offered her hugs and quiet congratulations. She'd gone from being invisible to unforgettable in a single afternoon. Before leaving, Daniel addressed the entire store. "From today forward, this location and all Rivermart stores will implement a new internal review process. I've seen enough neglect to know it's time to clean house." As the black SUVs pulled away and Daniel left, Emily stood outside the entrance, watching the horizon like her entire world had been flipped right side up. She clutched the business card tightly. The next week passed like a dream. She spent time with her recovering father, helped her mom around the house, and reflected on everything that had happened. When she reported to corporate headquarters in New York City, a driver picked her up from the airport. She was greeted by name, handed an official ID, and shown to her own desk. Her title, Customer Experience Associate, National Development Team. Her new job, working directly with store leaders to improve working conditions for frontline staff, using her story to influence training programs across hundreds of stores. Weeks later, Emily stood on stage next to Daniel during a Rivermart Leadership Summit. She shared her experience before hundreds of managers and executives. Her words were simple but powerful. "People don't quit jobs, they quit people. I stayed because someone saw me. Don't let your best people walk away unnoticed." The crowd stood to its feet. Applause thundered. From forgotten cashier to corporate advocate, Emily's story became a symbol of what happens when compassion meets courage, and when those in power choose to see what others ignore. Her tears had once gone unnoticed, but now they had sparked a change across an entire empire.